Hey everybody, this is the GAO Studio Rich Candy slider. It's sort of the Rich version 4, although they're not calling it that. And as you can see at the upper right corner there, it is available in yellow and orange right now. Both are POM, which is a kind of nylon. There's a Teflon insert in the middle, but I really like it. There's lots to talk about. It's an interesting piece. Might not operate exactly the way you're thinking it will, and it's quite a trick to take apart, but I will teach you the trick. So please join me, stick around, we'll have some fun. So I didn't even realize what I was getting until it arrived. This thing has two sides. It might have been a little bit more obvious to me if I had looked at the translations a little closer, although the video that they show on, this was on AliExpress. I bought this from a store. I'll put the store link for this in the notes in the description so you can find it. I've done business with this store before, so I'm pretty happy with them. And they gave me the fairest price on this right off the bat. That's part of the story with this one. Anyhow, what was I going to say? Well, I'm happy with it. It does operate a little differently than I expected it to. So one side has weak springs and balls, 2 of them to be exact, and the other side has strong springs and balls. So when you're using it, if you use it like I do, those are weak, those are strong. You get 3 weak clicks, 3 strong clicks. So they're not very weak and they're not very strong, but there's definitely a difference between the two. Now if I flip this over, it behaves a little bit differently, and it wants to push that part out. So you can do this if you're the kind of person that enjoys the USB thumb drive maneuver there, as I've heard people call it. I kind of like it. It's an interesting twist on things. But yeah, this thing, one side is soft and one side is hard. And I didn't really expect that. And when I went back to look at the videos, and like I said, I could still use it. The way I typically use a slider, I know I've said it a million times now, but I'll like slide it forward and then bring it back. And I like to feel and count the clicks, not literally count the clicks, but I like the clicks coming back to be slow. But I typically do that. I'm not a back and forth kind of person. I'm not a person that does things just slowly like this. You know, it's forward, back. In this case, it's 3 clicks here, 3 clicks here, and of course 3 clicks in the opposite direction. But yeah, I typically use it like that. So I can still use it without making any modifications to it at all, and that's fine. But being the way I am, I was like, well, how do you get inside this thing? I mean, it was really bugging me. You could see that there's a little middle track here, same on both sides. And then you've got your detent, your line of detents on either side. So we can assume there's a ball and spring on either side, and that there's some sort of mechanism in the middle here that's holding these 2 pieces together. At least it prevents them from going too far in one direction or the other. So whatever that is, it's located right now, it's located right here in the middle. And I started to think, well, it can't really be a pin, because how would they get a pin in there? This thing does not have any screws on it. It doesn't come apart in that way. So I'm thinking, how could they get a pin in there and still manage to get this back together again? And there's no signs of any way that they could have done that. So I started looking at it with a bright flashlight shined behind it. And I knew that there were two balls protruding somewhere on the inside into these detents, but I didn't know what was going on in the middle. And the more I looked at it, and the more I thought about it, I thought, well, maybe it's a ball and spring. And then I looked closer at this little groove, and it turns out you're not going to be able to see it. I'll just get as close as I can here, maybe try to focus on it a little bit better. But if you were to be able to focus and look down into this little hole right here, it's not a straight cut down and over. In other words, an end mill is a type of drill bit that has a square edge, and it would have come down and it would have made a perfectly square hole, a hole that has a square edge across the bottom. When I looked closer at that, it turns out it was done with a ball end mill, which is a mill or a drill bit that has a rounded tip to it. So this little groove is actually rounded, which really made me think, well, that must be a ball and maybe two balls and a spring. And I started to think, well, this was yesterday. This was right after work yesterday, and I looked around the house and I thought, if I could get something in there to wedge in there and push that ball and spring up under enough to slide this cover off, one of these two covers off, well, that'd be great. But I didn't really have anything here to do that with. I didn't want to force anything down in there. I wanted something nice and thin, like a shim material, and I thought maybe I'd find something at work. And then I got to thinking more, well, if I could just get in there with something like a paper clip, then I'd be able to push down on the top of that ball bearing, and then that would get everything to release. And that's exactly how this works. It's pretty easy. We're going to do that. We're going to do that here in a minute. But like I said, it's right now, as it comes stock, it's going to be easy, soft springs on one side and tighter, stronger springs on the other side. And I just don't care for that very much because, well, it's not uniform. And one of the things we can do, this did not come with any instructions. It didn't come with any spare parts. So with using the parts we have in here, I'm going to show you how to make this into a 3-level slider that has an even spring tension on both sides. So that's part of the advantage of watching this video and learning about this one. You can just use the parts that are in it. What we're going to do is we're going to take, there's 2 soft springs on this side and 2 hard springs on this side. We're going to switch one out on either side, and that's going to be enough to make it work equally. There will no longer be a soft, easy side and a more difficult side. They'll both be equal, and that makes it a lot easier to play with, in my opinion. So that's where we're going to end. But just to talk about it a little bit, I mean, it's got the GAO Studio emblem on there, and it's just, I don't know if it's laser etched or not, but it's very difficult to see. Not a big deal to me, but that's that. It feels nice. The outside gives a real nice texture for grip. Doesn't matter if you're squeezing it or not, it slides really nice on this Teflon. Like I said, you can use it just the way it came out of the box. If a USB thing is your game, well, you got that built right in. So yeah, let's compare it to a few things. Actually, next thing we'll do is just talk about where this fits in the history of GAO Studio stuff. So the first thing I got my hands on, I believe it was this, and that's the Rich version 3. Is that right? Did I get that first? Might have gotten this first. I'm not sure which one came out first. It was either this one or it was this one, which is the V1. This one is like $10. So everybody, it's polycarbonate, so it's injection molded. It's not machined, it's not fancy, and it's not expensive for that reason. But it's pretty well made. It's a ball slider, 4 tracks, 4 balls. You can take the balls out and use it as a free-floating slider. I've added some Teflon tape which covers up the magnets that are exposed on here. Makes it work just a little bit better. This is a nice fun one. It'd be a good one to give kids or something if you're afraid they're going to get it lost, or, you know, because they're only $10 a pop. But yeah, that's a nice one, and I don't use it very often because I'm much more into mechanical stuff nowadays. But this was the, what did I do? What in the world did I do? you know what, we'll mess with this later. Yeah, I just don't play with this one very much because I've got more interesting things going on. But that's the V1. And then we have the V3 came out next, I think, chronologically. I can't remember which one I bought first, but this came out. And I really like this one. Of course, at the time I said it was my favorite, you know, as everything is. The first thing for Habit for a week, it's my new favorite. But this one's mechanical or magnetic. But it's very slippery on the outside, and the only way to use it is to approach it from the front and behind, which makes, you know, unless maybe you had, the more you squeeze it, the worse it goes, because these are POM, these are black POM plates on here, and POM does not rub really well against each other. At least in this case, it doesn't. There's no Teflon involved here. That's POM against POM. And the only way I get this to work really well is to push it from the front, hold it from the front, push it from behind, which kind of negates doing any kind of backward movements like that. But that's the V3, and then the V2 came out, and I don't have that one, but we'll pop a picture there. And that one is just a metal version of the V1, and I think it's a little misleading. Like this one, the magnets are permanent. There's no taking the magnets out. I think that the V2 being metal, I believe that maybe the magnets might be interchangeable, but it wouldn't be, to me, it would kind of not be really worthwhile, I don't think, for the money, because they want almost $70 for that thing. Even more so if you want it in different metals. They've got stainless steel, brass, and copper. But again, I'm going to skip on that one, just not interested. When I saw this pop up, the interesting story about this one is that it was, it showed up on the store I bought it from for like $30, $35. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. It seems kind of high, but it's fair. I jumped on it right away. And I didn't even see it pop up anywhere else for like another day or two. And then it started to pop up, and even places that I trust and do business with, like INS Work Store, they initially listed this thing for like over $80. It was like $85. And it was the same with 2 or 3 other stores. And I don't remember what those stores' names were either. But maybe they got the wrong memo or something. I don't know. But and then I noticed after a few days, all those guys that had the price up at above $85 all dropped it back down to, well, the store I bought it from still had the cheapest price. Again, that'll be in the link. And the other stores are still selling it for about $45 or more. So I think I paid about $35 for this, which I think is well worth it. But that is the story of a short history of the Rich slider from GAO Studio. I think the next thing we'll do is some comparisons and weights, and then we'll be moving on to the Disassembly. Stick around. Well, to keep things simple, we're just going to be comparing it to the two usuals that people tend to have, the Mackie CP3 this one doesn't go backwards. This one does. Okay, and of course the Metal Toys DZ Top B slider with the ZZ plate. I'll extend them both out here for you. Okay, I think that's about it for comparisons. I will bring out one other one at the very end because I want to show you the comparisons of the mechanics with this one. But for now, we'll finish off what we're up to. There are no magnets in this, so it is at 21, 22 grams. Very light. dimensions, I am getting 48 millimeters, 22 millimeters, 14 millimeters, and when it's fully extended, 73 millimeters. I think what I want to do first is try to explain to you what we're going to be doing here with the disassembly and how this works. So if you can just get yourself an ordinary paper clip, bend it out thusly, you don't have to be too precise, and gently work it in there until you can get down to where you feel it hitting a metal bearing ball. And then I'll have to show you here, I wanted to show you in a little diagram of what we're actually doing when we get to that point. So let's try and do that. So we have like 3 layers, and this represents this layer, the middle part represents the middle layer, and the bottom part represents this layer. And there's a pin of some sort. Like I said already, we know that it's 2 springs, 1 spring with a ball on both sides. If I haven't said that, that's what I'm about to show you here. And that's how they're able to get it apart and put it back together again. I don't think that it was necessarily intended for us to be taking it apart because they didn't include instructions and it's not perfectly clear. But what you have then is a hole through the middle part, and then across the top here we have this cutout, which is the track, so to speak. And there's a ball here and a ball here, and there's a spring connecting the two. So we're going to be coming in from the side in this little space right here. Our little toothpick, see if I can draw, not a toothpick, our little paper clip is going to come in, and we're going to push in that direction, and we're going to force that ball to go down just far enough that we can finish sliding it the rest of the way off. We just need to get that ball pushed out of the way or started, and then once it's out of the way far enough, this thing will slide right off, and you'll put your finger over top of it here to keep the springs and balls from flying out. But I'll show you that here when we get to it. All right, so let's put that plan into action. Put the paper clip back in there. If I move it, tap it, I can feel it hitting a metal object. That'd be the ball bearing. And I just want to try giving it a little bit of a push and see what happens. Nothing really happened there, so I'm going to move it around a little bit. Give it another push. Okay, there, it moved in a little bit. I'm going to gently let go of that. Oh, see, it popped out. Okay, there it's in place. Maybe if I hold it in place myself. Now, I'm just going to put my thumb over top of where the springs are. Remember, the springs are right in here. And I'm going to take my other thumb and pull this out of the way. So now the balls and springs, if I take my finger off of this gently, well, there they all fell off anyhow. Oops. So here you have one side is done. And the other side now is you have to remember that the other side, if you slide this too far one way or the other, those springs and balls are going to fly out. 2 more balls and 2 more springs. So get it out close, put your thumb over top of where those are, and then slide this out of the way. And then you can lift your thumb off, and that's where the springs and balls are. So that's it. Everything is in half, and my goal was to remember there was 2 soft springs on one side and 2 hard springs on the other side. I just want to mix that up because I know if I do that, I can get this to be more of an even flowing slider. So while we have it in this position, let's figure out which springs are the soft ones. These are the soft ones. I've done this enough now that I'm pretty used to knowing which ones. Now one of them is bigger and thicker than the rest. That goes in the middle. That stands off by itself. And here we have 2 that are tangled together. And those are the stiff springs. I can actually see the difference too. These are a thicker wire gauge than these, and that's much thicker and bigger. So we've also got 2 4mm balls for that middle spring, and then these are all 3mm balls for the sides. Like I said before, it was too soft on this side, too hard on this side. We're just going to put 1 of each on both sides, and this is how you put the whole thing back together. If you follow my instructions from this point forward, you'll be in good shape. There is a reason to do it in this order. So when it's all apart, you can start with this side and put two springs. Whoops, I almost put 2 of the same springs back in. I wanted to put 1 hard and 1 soft. So 1 hard and 1 soft. All right. Put the 3mm balls on top of that. Take either side, slide it back on, put your finger down, press down on those 2, and then slide it out of the way as you slide this back on. There. One side is completely done. Now, I'm going to take the stiff spring and put it on top just like I did on the other side. The soft spring on the bottom. Put the very thick, strong spring in the middle. That's the only place it'll fit. Whoops, whoops, I made a mistake. Very important. Let's get that middle one back out. Very, 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 very important. You have to put a ball in there first. Remember that drawing I made? There's a ball on each side of that spring. Ball goes in first, then the spring. And let me show you why that's important. If you forget, we'll just finish it up to this point. All right, if you forget to put a ball in there and then move things around, you're likely to ruin one of your springs, because that's what happened to me earlier. Now, I find it a little bit easier maybe for this to slide on in this direction, because if you see, these are in sort of a pattern like an arrowhead pointing that way. So, and the hardest one to push down happens to be the middle one with the thicker spring. So I'm going to push all those down, slide this over, and again, I'm going to move my finger out of the way as I push this over top of everything. There we go. So now it will be even clicks all the way. Now it's no longer one side is soft, one side is hard. Both sides are basically equal right now. So for me, that makes all the difference in the world. And sometimes it seems no matter what you do, one side will still be perhaps a little bit more dominant than the other side, but you have to remember you're dealing with 4 different springs. So if you don't like the way it's, like I like it to come down to that point and then that point. I like to do that over and over again. And if I flip this over, it's acting a little differently because the springs are a little stronger. So just move it around in your hand until you're happy with how you like it. Or you could try moving the springs around. Either way, that is how you can take the existing parts that came with this, because like I said, there are no extra parts if I haven't said that. There's also no instructions on how to take it apart. So hopefully now, you will now know how to do that. One last thing I was going to do was compare it to this. They're so similar in construction, I almost have to. This is the what is it called? It's by Dom EDC, and it's called the Piano. And I've been tempted to get this in stainless steel, because I really like the PEI version. But it's very similar in a sense that the middle part, it's a 3-level slider, and the middle part is completely enclosed. So I'm kind of used, I guess the reason I kind of brought that out is because I'm used to most sliders having the middle part exposed a little bit on the side, and that gives you a little bit of control when you squeeze it from the sides. But you don't have that on a design like this. So if you're picky like me about this middle part and how it's interacting with you, or how it's behaving, you have to flip it around and find out which way works best for you. You're kind of out of luck. You can't control that middle piece by squeezing the outer sides. And this is the same way. But either way, I'm quite happy with both. Very happy with this. I think that the price was reasonable. It was about $35. If you wait, I'm almost certain the prices will come down on these. I'll bet there'll be more color options. Just guessing. And this would be a great candidate to be done in metal. I think they'd be crazy not to do this in metal. And I really don't understand why they sent them out the door the way they did, because it's so much better to me with the detents and the springs and balls and the pressures and everything evenly displaced, so that you get an equal click from either side, the top or bottom. I like that so much better than the way it came. And of course I might try putting some different kind of balls in this too. And I have the option, I have enough springs that I could put in for, I did it earlier, 4 of the same exact types of springs. And it probably improves things just a little bit more. But considering that these are the only parts that it came with, and all we did was rearrange their locations to get a completely different result, I'm pretty happy with that. So I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else to talk about. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching. Bye.